In this video, we are going to see how we can take the AI-generated masks made in Adobe Camera RAW and pass them to Photoshop to use as masks on adjustment layers. So the first thing I need to do is to copy the background layer by pressing Command J on the keyboard or Control J on a PC. And then I am going to bring up the Adobe Camera RAW dialog by pressing Command Shift A, like this. And then I want to go into the masking panel by clicking this icon or pressing M on the keyboard. So now if you give Photoshop a few moments, it will detect that there are people inside of the frame. And then if you click on one of the people, you will get more options. So for example, you can select facial skin, body skin, eyebrows, etc. So for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm going to select the facial skin, body skin, eyebrows, and lips, because this is the kind of selection that is not possible to make in Photoshop, and there's no tool that can actually do a selection like this. You may think that, for example, you could do something similar with color range. If you set its range to skin tones, for instance, and you adjust the fuzziness, you will see that because there's so much overlap in terms of color between the skin and the hair and the trousers, the selection becomes way too wide. So we can't actually get it, we can't constrain it to the skin alone. So going back to Adobe Camera RAW, I'm going to set my selection or my mask like this, my selection like this, and then I will click on Create Mask. Now, if you zoom in, you will see that the selection is not perfect, that there is quite a bit of haloing around the arm, and that the selection has gone over the edge of the t-shirt, and then on the face itself, you can see that some areas have not been selected. So I think the best thing to do would be to try to fix these problems now. So I can either add or subtract from my selections. So for example, if I click on Add and then I choose Brush as my tool, I can adjust the brush size and I can add to the selection on the face like this. Or in this area, you can go to Subtract and then again use the brush and try to refine the selection around this area. Okay, so now I'm just going to quickly go around the image and refine the selection first. Okay, so I have now fixed the mask. It may not be perfect on the face, but it doesn't really matter for this demonstration. So what I can now do is I can either darken the whole thing, my selection like this, but because in this image we have really dark trainers, there's not much contrast between this area and the skin. So for this image, it would be a better idea if we just lighten everything like this to try to make it really bright. So I'm just going to push everything up. The exposure, the highlights, shadows, whites, blacks like this to try to make this area as white as possible. And I can even scroll down to the curve and then lift everything up a little bit more like this. Okay, so once we have this in place, we can click OK. And now we have passed that selection onto this duplicate layer that we created earlier. Now what we can do is, if we change the blending mode from normal to difference like this, we can then go to channels and command click onto the RGB layer, or you can press command option 2 or control option 2 on a PC to load this layer as a selection, and then we can create any adjustment layer, like let's say curves, for example. Now I can turn the duplicate layer off like this, and then option click or alt click onto the mask, and then press command M to bring up the curves and increase the contrast of this mask like this. And then I may even do this in passes, so like this, and click OK, and then press command M again to bring up the curves again like this. Click OK, maybe repeat this once again. Okay, so now I think I have a really good contrast. I can click OK, and I can tidy this up a little bit more. This time, maybe I can use a brush, paint with black. So press D on the keyboard to bring up the default colors, then X to bring the black forward like this. And then I can just take out these bits because this is not skin. Like this. So these are the bits that I missed. I may need a smaller brush for this, like this. And then if you use a white brush, you can maybe take these bits out, like this. And if I look at this area, again, I can try to fix these bits. Another way that some of these areas could be fixed, if you use the burn tool, you set it to mid-tones, set the exposure to 100%, and then you can just burn in the soft areas of the mask like this. So this will not affect the black and whites, only the grays. Or maybe even switch to the brush once again. I think I don't need this. I could not see this properly because of the color. And maybe the face, the bits around the face, I will fix later on when I can actually see what I'm doing. Okay, so now I option click on to the mask again. And if I zoom out, now we can take the curves and maybe make an adjustment like this. We just lighten the skin slightly, or we could even go, let's say, into the red channel to adjust the color balance as well. Now bear in mind that this was shot with color gels, so it's supposed to have a warm cast on it. Now if we zoom in and look at the face, you can see that the mask is not perfect yet, so we can click on the mask, and then once again we can use the brush tool, paint with black, and then just fix this mask in places. And this way we can actually take advantage of those selections in Adobe Camera RAW and bring them into Photoshop.